Jaylin says avoid entering family wrangles. That is an interesting observation to me, Jaylin. You know why? Because let us say, for instance, that the family, their provider and their patriarch is now deceased. The person that they're up against is actually the number two in the country. Let us just say, for argument's sake, that Gachagua is mistreating them, that Gachagua is exploiting them, that Gachagua is disinheriting them. Where are they to seek justice when they have financial issues, when he has influence? We saw in the evidence that this is the deputy president who can pick up the phone and call the CEO of KEMSA and ask him questions on a tender that he has sent his son to pursue. And the CEO will actually pick the phone, and the effect of that is not the same as me and you calling the CEO of KEMSA pursuing a tender. This is gross abuse of office. So it is not inconceivable that he's also harassing his own family members in regards to inheritance and such like issues. Jaylin, apart from just moving to the courts, why should someone who has a bullhorn and who has access to information refuse to speak up for the voiceless? If it happened to you, Jaylin, wouldn't you want people like us, people like Ken Mijungu, who run shows, who are in media, who can write articles in newspapers, who can dig and find information? Wouldn't you like them to speak on your behalf? And wouldn't you like them to shine a spotlight where impunity is happening because there is darkness? Finally, she says that MPs should not be settling scores. MPs will always settle scores. I agree that it should not be on, on public dime at the expense of the public. But let us not prejudge the process. Let us allow the political process to play out. Let us allow Gachagua to move forward and defend himself. Let us allow also the evidence to come out all in its entirety, so that Kenyans can be more in the know, and the people in Mashinani, from the mountain and from across the board to the lake, to the rift, to everywhere, to Northeastern, can know the deputy president for what he is. Thank you. Let's take more views and more questions. I can see the numbers are continuing to rise. As we get tired, right at the 1 minute to the end of this space, I think Ken will be forced, as you said, to extend it.
Yeah, Benji. I think this is a service to us Kenyans, so we'll extend it as much as we can, but also not also keep people up for so long. So I'd given the mic to Redemptor, if I'm not wrong, Grace. Then the government guardian, Kip Kirui, you are supposed to go. Are you here? Kip Kirui? Okay.
Oh, let me drop off. Sorry.
Okay, you're still here. Oh, sorry. So let's do Redemptor, then we do Grace, then we can do Professor Fred Simiu, then Batabella Ronald, and then Titus. So in that order, if you have questions, you can also direct it. Let's begin with Redemptor if you're here.
Good evening to the host and co-host. Thank you for hosting us. I don't know if I can match Benji's passion on this subject. And Ken, you've said after the impeachment or not, or saving of the case, this is going to be a topic for the next 2 years. So the question I pose is, when will we get service as citizens? Benji is very passionate about this because I get the feeling that he knows the players very well. But to be honest, if we went back in time and played what you just said, played it back word for word, we would be describing Gashagua's boss. Same things you're describing would be in 2020 when they had a falling out with Uhuru. It will be the same script. And so the question I ask is, people want to talk the legalese, they want to talk about the constitution, the implication, but the question is, isn't this telling us that we can survive without a deputy president? Because we saw the emergence of two groups, Tanga, and one group ran around the country calling those jamas, serikali ya nusu mkate, whatever they were calling it last time, handshake, and now we are in the back place. 2 years, exactly 2 years, or even 1 year into the swearing in of the other time. The worst thing about this is Kenyans can be likened to parents who are fighting and they're in an abusive relationship and the children are malnourished, they are not getting their rights met, because these parents are just fighting over who takes what. And that has been going on until the reset button was almost pressed by the Zs. Now, I've heard you mention about the if we were the children of the late governor, wouldn't we want people with strong voices to speak for them? But we're speaking for all the Kenyans who've been disinherited, who've been mistreated, who have a force so mighty they cannot speak up. Why would we take that same passion for one family and not think about the millions of families in Kenya today who don't know where the next bill will come from, who do not know if their children will go to school? Secondly, when you talk about the rearrangement of the senators, for example, and we mentioned senators from Eastern, maybe we should just put the senators of ODM versus the senators of Wiper. And why the double standards? Because after the Gen Z revolt, they regrouped and Raila's lot came to the government. Now they've left the deputy outside. So let's go to the allegations. I'm not even going to the charges being leveled against the deputy president. I'm just asking a question. He told us when they came into power that people carried money from treasury in wheelbarrows. People are coming and telling us that the deputy president attempted to overthrow the government. Don't we have the rule of law? If these things have really happened, then that was treason. People died in that attempt. And again, when they came to power, they said the previous people carried. So I think the passion we are putting is the Kenyan citizens are collateral damage. It could be a legal process, it could be a constitutional process, but it is more of a political process because now we are seeing the MPs, people died in Tana River, 19 people died in Tana River. And what is making headlines? Who might become the next deputy president? The names that are being dropped in the docket of the person who's supposed to tell us what has happened to. So who serves Kenyans? Because we are at the mercy of the fights that have been going on for the last 10 years. When every time the president has a falling out with his deputy, who suffers? It is the citizens. And we are now just about getting worked up again to start talking about them. When will they serve Kenyans? Because this is now making headlines from when the other week we were the River Kufa Magakanga public participation. Who pays for that? Even those public participations that were not necessary, because it appears they had the numbers, they would have done this. They were just trying to tick a box that we had public participation. The number of people who are questioned is neither here nor here, doesn't meet the standards of statistics. So I find it's unfair that we are going to talk about this and we cannot help but talk about it, but at whose expense? It is at the expense of the Kenyans who will not get service because people are rearranging themselves. I can see now there's going to be, and then the hatred. We are getting polarized. Last time we were polarized against 2 blocks. Then came hustler blocks, polarized us again. Right now, people are getting worked up and saying 40 against 1. When will we have a chance just to be Kenyans and not be held hostage by politics? Surely Moi alituambia siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. We are living it for the last, I think, 20 or 15 years. Those are my submissions. I'm sorry I've gotten out of this. We are seeing people going to courts. There are so many litigations. There are so many cases. If we had goodwill, we will not even need all these cases. We will not be questioning deals done by Adani this, Adani that. We will not be questioning why are we changing service providers and paying for a service and exaggerating. It is our responsibility. Anybody who has a voice now to start crying for the disinherited Kenya. Because when you sell, passion yangu pia imenipeleka mbali. Thank you, Mijungu and Benji, for the opportunity to speak up. It is unfair to Kenya.
You make sense. Before you drop off, Mwikali, I'd like to ask you a question. Everything is political. Even religion is political. That's why you see all these churches fighting for leadership and they campaign and they look for votes from their congregants. Everything in this country, even our own finance bill, is political. Everything is pure politics in this country. Would you rather we don't sort out this political process so that it lingers, it remains? Because what the preposition I'm getting from you is that we are being our Kenyans have been left to their own device as people politic and rearrange their political cards. So what would you rather, just briefly, as I go to Grace?
We have to fix the political problem, but
Yes.
we are not going to fix it in this script that has not worked for the last 15 years. This script has refused to work. And then secondly, anybody who fights for social justice has no chance when the political is in this mess, because we are picking people from downstream and we are not coming upstream to say, unless we fix it up here, we have no chance. So it has to be fixed, but not in their favor. Asanteni.
Okay. It has to be fixed, but not to at our expense and to their favor. Thank you so much, Redemptor. And remember, good people, next weekend also 8 p.m. we'll be hosting this. There'll be other issues. Remember, Senate would have done its thing, so we'll definitely be hosting another space. Don't forget to tune in next week on Sundays 8 p.m.
Can I read a tweet here?
Yes. So Benji, I know you want to say something, but I'd like to finish. Grace has been holding for a long time. Grace, you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Please proceed.
Thank
Then
you.
we can go to Benji before we come to other speakers.
Thank you for hosting us, for the co-host and the host. And for me, I want to give my honest view about the process that Gachagua is facing right now. Personally, I feel that even the public participation was compromised. The reason is I saw it was advertised and there was a form in the newspaper that was last week but one. This form was written in English. So precisely it wanted you to tick what you want and also tick the allegations. So I'm asking, could my grandmother do that? Definitely no. So what did we see? We saw, according to the parliament, only 200,000 people completed the process. But now here again comes my question. How many Kenyans decided even not to attend the public participation because they felt it is irrelevant? And another thing, I feel politicians are taking us for a ride. And the good thing is right now, people are serious about real issues. And this is one thing that the government has not realized yet. You see, if we people of Kenya, we contribute taxes for what? We want good governance. And also we want accountability. How many governors have been impeached? So many. We have had a situation whereby these governors are impeached, but they don't face the law. They are not taken to court. They are not. They don't face charges of stealing money. We also find politicians who have stolen money come with sympathy and look for votes again from Kenyans. So people like Obado, they stole from Kenyans, but they are at home scot-free. We don't see any court processes going through. We don't see them returning public funds. So I'm wondering what will happen to Gachagua after he's impeached. Will he go, if the government is claiming he is a thief, he has stolen our money, he has misused public resources, I want to see him go to jail, and I want to see him return Kenyans' money. That is number two. Lastly, I don't want to take much of your time. Lastly, I think Gachagua have been doing this since he was elected. And if I remember correctly, that the reason why I'm seeing this thing political, it's not honest that politicians want Gachagua gone because of those reasons. It is a question of loyalty. Gachagua is no longer loyal to his boss. That's why the boss wants him gone. But if we look at Gachagua, right from the day of inauguration, we could tell what he's speaking to. Why was he not being condemned those days? Why wait until now? And if, for me, I went for those mandamanos and I was not called by Gachagua to go there. I went there because I felt the finance bill, as a Kenyan who pays tax, is heavy on me. So I want to give you an example with the UK. In the UK, they collect 40% of income of every citizen. In Kenya, with the recent taxations that we have, they collect at least 35 to 38% of our income. But if you look at the results, is the government giving us what we want? Definitely not. In the UK, if I go to the hospital, it will be free. If I have a kid, I will take that child to best schools and it's for free, paid by the government. So I think politicians still don't know what we want. So basically, we don't care about Gachagua, whether he goes home or not. We care about our money. We want our money returned, number one. Number two, we don't care which tribe becomes the deputy president. We don't care. What we want to see is leaders who are working for the benefit of Kenyans. So leaders should just stop this hypocrisy of wasting our time all the time with nonsense. That is all I can say.
Thank you, and I agree with you. We should not be sidetracked. Thank you, Grace, so much. And I like your preposition. And this is a lot of people who think like that. That this thing should not just end here. If it's true that the government knows that Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, has been doing business with this country, and they truly and honestly believe that this has been illegal, and they truly believe that is in contravention of the Constitution, then if they impeach him, if we don't see them going to court, then we need to ask them hard questions. Was this PR? Was it public gimmick? Were you settling political scores by bringing all these charges, and yet you know they can't stand in court? So I agree with you, Grace. If this happens, then some of these charges that attract criminal sanctions must be taken to court so that we know that indeed these guys were honest, not just expediency at this particular point. So thank you so much. Professor Fred Simiu, if you're here. Professor Fred? Okay, Professor Fred is not here. I'll be giving more mics. Titus Nakil, as I give more mics. If you're here, please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Mijingu and the co-host. Okay, I'm Titus Nakel.
Titus, you just called me like Ishunga calls me Mijingu.
Oh, Mijingu, sorry. I think that's what is written here. Okay, let me bring my point very honestly. Number one, I just want to ask this question and then it will be answered later. Who will benefit when the deputy president will impeach? Are we Kenyans going to benefit or not? That's the first question we have to answer ourselves. Secondly, in my view, I think our National Assembly is compromised. Number one, personally, I attended the GSC protest on 25th of June, and I was not told by anybody. The only thing that I thought, it was about the taxation of the nation. The parliamentarians who impeached the deputy president are the one who passed that law saying that it's good. Yet, these are the people that we elected them to go and represent our views. And that's what the deputy president, in fact, said today in Embu, that these people are not listening to our views as more common mwananchi. We have very serious things that we are supposed to be discussing as a nation through the National Assembly. Number one, we do not have the IEBC. I think those are the things that the parliamentarians should be thinking of, not about the impeachment of the deputy president, which will not benefit me or you, who is in this platform now. Secondly, the higher education fund, which was rejected by the courts. Those are the things. I'm a student now, I'm currently learning. Some students are complaining, hell haijaingia kwa system zao, lakini tuko na time ya kukaa mpaka saa 2 ya usiku tukisema patriots while we are impeaching the deputy president. Thirdly, they are done a thing. Yesterday, the minister for CS, Opio Andai, says that they have signed a contract with the Adani deal about the 75 billion Kenya shillings for a contract of Kentraco. Sasa hizo vitu surely. The last thing that I will talk about is about the National Assembly. I think And I think there is an article in the constitution that the Kenyan and the sovereign of people is the highest. And I think we don't have a national assembly now because it's compromised. Ni watu wenye, I heard in fact, say they are started talking about they were paid 50,000 and they were supposed to be paying 450. I don't know those allegations if they're true, but wameanza to complain. Why are they complaining? I saw a member of parliament saying that they were supposed to be paid some amount of money and the government is not paying them. In fact, I saw something like 300,000 was spent during the public participation date for each constituency. The members of parliament who signed that signatory of the impeachment were 291. If you calculate that money, that's 87,300,000. Just wasting time, wasting nonsense, wasting our resources with a very impunitive. I think we should now tell the parliamentarians, all of them, and the government should be solved. Kuva Kedereva, Kuva Makanga. Thank you. I'm very disappointed.
Why are you so angry,
Ken, real quick.
Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Relax.
I'm so
Okay,
angry because
most
I'm
speakers,
so angry because our parliamentarians they are doing nothing. Nothing. We have a lot
they're
of things to
taking us.
discuss as a nation.
I said this Titus last week that there was a court case that was filed in 2016, Katiba Institute. There were 3 judges, Kimondo, Odunga, and I think Chachamuita. They outlawed those sections 45, 44, 45, 47, 48, all those things that made it difficult in the Elections Act, in the Constitution, and of course in the County Governments Act to impeach, to recall these elected members of the assemblies, county assembly or parliament. Please read it, exercise yourself to it. Go to Kenya Law Reporting, look for that case, read it. If you're disappointed with members of parliament, we do the same thing as Kenyans. Sometimes, Benji, I don't know why it's so difficult, but sometimes I get hung up because you are a journalist, and a lot of people ask me these questions. Ken, where do you draw the divide between being a journalist, an objective journalist, and talking about these things? I realized at some point in my life that Kenya is us and Kenya is our business. The more we keep quiet from objectively talking about issues and respectfully, the more we get lost. So we are gagged and caged within, oh, you journalists cannot speak about these things. And yet you are Kenyan, yet we pay tax, then you are affected by all these things. So I understand your disappointment, Titus, but I'll tell you this. Odunga, Kimondo, and Muita outlawed those sections, found them illegal because they were going against the constitution. Please find them, read them. Let's exercise the same authority that we have, that members of parliament, our elected representatives, using our donated power, are using to impeach the deputy president, to recall them. I don't see a problem with that. So I'll approve more. Professor Fred Simiu, are you still here? If he's not here, there is...
Before Fred goes, Ken,
Okay.
Yeah, just to spice up the discussion a bit, I want to read a tweet here from Polycarp Hinga on X, on Twitter. He says, and this has 91,000 reads, 91,000. But Gachagua is not a good person. Somewhere deep down, you all know this. That is Polycarp Hinga. I don't even know him, but I'm happy to just read different opinions at all times of the day. Let me just remind the lady of something that I said earlier, and that is that the issue of public participation is one of considering the dimension of representation versus participation. So it's actually not a requirement per se in this process. In fact, it is used to gauge public opinion through various means, but it's not required to hold those public votes for an impeachment. And that is because impeachment proceedings are political and complex, and normally charged introducing public participation can complicate the process and lead to a multitude of challenges. The legal requirement for evidence and due process could be overshadowed by public opinion, which may not be informed based on facts. Rather, it would be informed based on emotions, based on tribe, which is what you're hearing here. I'm also getting messages, Ken, people saying, hey, I'm in the space, but I just feel, why are you guys so harsh on Gachagua? What about his boss? Or is it only Gachagua to be held accountable, etc.? Again, this kind of argument is a fallacy, because it is relativism. And it is, we talked about this last week, Ken. It's akin to saying a man has been accused of murder, and then he's saying, yeah, okay, I killed, but also Ken also killed. So why don't you go look for Ken with Kony in Uganda, and then you can charge us all together? And really, law should not work that way. So I think that there's a lot of misplaced anger or displaced anger. I think that, and by the way, Ken, this is my humble suggestion. Some of us have worked the whole day today. I can see the numbers continuing to rise, and maybe what I suggest is let's wrap this thing up at 10:30 so that people can also have some more anticipation now to join, and then we do more research on the charges when you do another space to discuss this, so that we don't just go on endlessly. I can see a lot of people are reacting and are tuning in more and more, so that we can have substantive discussions, and maybe we will be lucky and fortunate enough and competent enough to harness this anger for greater good, because people are disappointed in many things, but the solution to this disappointment does not lay at all in excusing corruption, in excusing impunity, especially where a subject is actually completely caught in the crosshairs. I think it would be irresponsible for us to have 11 grounds of serious charges against a deputy president or a CS or even a president, and then to say, no, no, let's not move forward because also the speaker is a corrupt speaker and yet he has not been brought here. This is what the opposers of this motion are trying to tell us, that, yeah, we know there are issues with Gachagua, but what about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? What about? And that is not a solid argument. That's a fallacious argument. So I would just suggest maybe you take a few more and we wrap up. And then we continue interacting. We look at how the media coverage is. We look forward to the debate without anticipating it per se. We can make some predictions here and there, but let us not try to curtail the process either within the media or within the court system, in the sense of he could be a bad man, but there are also other bad men. And if he's abusing the family, well, that's a family issue. I'm hearing a lot of warped arguments. And in a sense, I'm sorry to say, sometimes I listen to this kind of stuff, Ken, and I can just kind of see why our country is actually messed up. However, hope dies last. And I'll be back to give my conclusion, and then we can wrap up. Thank you.
Benji, I actually agree with you because it's a Sunday and we've had 2 hours and 24 minutes of this. I'll just like to urge everyone, the over 600 of you still here, that next week we'll be hosting this, and next week it will even be bigger and better. The reason why is because this week is busy. Remember, Governor Kimutai's trial starts. Most important is what is happening in the Senate. And we anticipate that for the first time, the president is going to speak this week. He really needs to add his voice to this. And depending on how it goes on Thursday, the future of this country will be redefined by what happens. Because the biggest question is the political process and where the court is. Will the court overreach, or will it leave the political process to settle the way it began? So it will be a very important conversation. I'm just speaking, and quite a big number of people have joined. Ladies and gentlemen, we really appreciate you being here. However, it's a Sunday. We also need to let you sleep. The person who's been hanging online for a long time is Professor Fred Simi. If you're not here, I'll give it to Weston Shihalo or Trevor Omondi, Tevin Omondi. If any one of you is here, please, 1 minute, 1 minute. We have 4 minutes to close this.
Yes, Ken Mijung, hope I've called it right. Thank you so much. I can't talk about the courts because I'm a public health officer. I don't know about the courts. So I've heard the previous speakers blaming Gachagua. I don't know why people are blaming Rigathi. Let me tell you this. A man without a tribe is a man without identity. I heard you say that you are from Suba. That's your identity. I'm a Luo, and look at what's happening. Opio and is a Luo. Is selling energy sector to Adani. Starbucks to supply us with jet fuel. Since Treasury, John Mbadi is also a Luo, giving PPEs to Adani Airport, basically selling our country. Personally, I've never heard him. I've never heard Rigathi Gachagua on a scandal. Look at Moses Kuria, the man who was hired the other day. This man had a 14.5 billion edible oil scandal, which only 2.8 million 20 liters of jerry cans arrived in Kenya. I just want to ask those previous speaker blaming Rigathi. Is Rigathi hiking our taxes and pay bills, which will be subjected to taxes starting the coming December? Is Rigathi selling our airport? Is Rigathi selling our food system to Bill Gates? Is Rigathi selling our health system to Adani, IMF, and Bill Gates? Thanks so much, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. But I feel, as much as you're right, Tevin, if we bring a lot of issues to this space, we might get lost, but we will definitely be hosting this space every Sunday. All these issues that Kenyans need to ventilate about, I assure you we'll be talking about them. So thank you so much for your contribution, and Kenyans feel the same. I have two more people, and I guess we will be closing in less than 2 minutes. So Benji, I'll remember these two names. I'll give you your closing remarks. Then I can close. Then we can meet next week on Sunday at 8 p.m.
Ken, I'm here.
Oh, this is Professor Fred.
No, this is Weston.
Weston, proceed. 1
Yes.
minute. We really need to close.
Thanks,
please.
Ken. Thanks. 1 minute, Ken. What I will say is that Rigathi is supremely unqualified to be the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And that we cannot tolerate such a character is an indictment on us as a society. We have no sense of morality, we have no sense of values, we have no sense of probity. We wax lyrical about accountability, but when push comes to shove, we develop cold feet and we relapse into some very fallacious arguments and tribal cocoons. That will not take us far. Let me just put it to you like this, Ken and Benji. Take out all those 11 charges. Some of them could constitute criminal charges in a court of law if we were a functioning democracy. But on the question of tribal mobilization, balkanizing the country along ethnic lines, that is sufficient ground to impeach Rigathi. On the question of gender and the intersectionality of gender with all aspects as far as development is concerned, for him to be accused of having referred to some female politician as a prostitute, sufficient ground to impeach Rigathi. These things that people are talking about vis-a-vis the family affairs, disinheriting his late brother's family and stuff like that. We hear these cases a lot in Kenya, where widows are being disinherited by very weird people, relatives. Why do we think that we can tolerate this and reduce it to a family issue? We have many problems like this. When are we going to stand up for justice for the weak and the vulnerable? Well, I don't think his late family's brother could be likened to some other families all over the country, but justice is justice. Secondly, Ken, you're saying the courts should force these two individuals to work together, or whether they could. Why would the courts force these two individuals to work together when it's clear that there is no love lost between them? Where will that take the country? There will be stasis. So, for the sake of stability, and people should get it clear, when you say Rigathi should be impeached, that does not in any way amount to support for William Ruto. It doesn't. We're saying this. The political elite tend to coalesce and close ranks against the interests of the Kenyan people. When they fall out like this factionalism, I can tell you it's in the best interest of us. When they don't fall out, they're busy looting, they're busy making policies, they're busy making laws that are against the people of Kenya. And therefore, for me, for no other reason that Rigathi Gachagua advocates exclusivity, advocates balkanization of the state, thinks that you can derive political legitimacy out of defining yourself as a tribal warlord, sufficient reason to impeach him. Otherwise, will be creating sufficient ground for genocide at a later stage. Move such a person as far away from the presidency as possible. You cannot afford to have somebody like this hovering around the presidency. What if something happens to William Ruto? You will have a disaster. We already have got problems. This will be a disaster. So we have to stop him here and now. We'll deal with other problems about Adani, about William Ruto later, one at a time. So my prediction, Ken, is that the Senate will uphold the impeachment of Rigathi because William Ruto could not have gone ahead with this if he wasn't sure that he can win this war. He may seek redress in the courts. The courts will not save him because I think if the judiciary intervenes in this matter, that would amount to judicial overreach. Let the political elite settle this matter once and for all. We get a replacement and we'll deal with other problems when and as they appear. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Weston.
Mic drop.
Mike, a good way to.
Mic
But
drop.
Benji, before you come in, I will give a student here. He's been pestering me and asking me for the mic. Take 1 minute. Sido Kang. 1 minute only. We need to close this and allow people to rest. 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Ken. My submission is that we are anticipating that the Senate will uphold the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua because of his utterances. I had one issue with him on the day he was swearing in. The next day, I had an issue with him when he was in Mombasa after President Ruto addressed the nation. I was in the middle of demonstration, and when I heard Rigathi speaking, then I say there's a big issue. This cannot come from a deputy president when we are Kenyans looking forward for them to address the issues that we are throwing to them. It was a clear divide and it really pained me. And that is the day I left the demonstrations, because I said now, if Ruto is alone up there on himself, the person who could bring ideas to him on to bring for them to settle the issues that we were pushing, that broke my heart. So if there's a single reason that Gachagua should not be around presidency, is what he spoke when he was being sworn in and what he spoke on Mombasa. The rest of Olive Gardens and the rest, I think those ones are a bit tricky, and I mean with the issues of investigating might be hard, but because of his utterances, one in Mombasa and when he was being sworn in, is enough to take him home. And this will be a lesson to any other person that will come close to presidency and to any other leader in this country. If a deputy president can go home, then who are you that you can still rule with impunity? It will be a lesson learned. The issue of Adani and the rest will follow suit easily if such a thing can happen in this republic. Thank you, Mr. Mijungu.
Wow. Ken, you're there? Ken, you can hear me? Thanks to everybody.
Benji, those are two mic drops, right? So conclude this for us.
Those are two mic drops. Yes. I have to revert back to Western Shilaho, because these guys, what they have done is they have made an argument that I constantly make, Ken, and that is, we are not children of lesser gods. You and I are media professionals. Nowadays, at least there is Google, but I can tell you for free, we've seen a Speaker of the Parliament in London removed from office for falsifying mileage. It wasn't even by a lot. He was supposed to submit something to the tune of 164 kilometers, and he submitted 226, something like that. And that variance was deemed to be fraudulent, to be an attempt to rob the public purse, and just that mileage claim alone removed a speaker under the Parliament of Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Why are we children of a lesser God? Why is it okay for a deputy president to abuse Kenyans in this manner? Why is it just fine? Now, as we conclude in my concluding remarks, allow me as a political analyst to give caution to our brothers and sisters from the mountain, the so-called mountain. If you look at the numbers from IBC for 2022, and if you look at the political landscape as it has been designed and defined, yes, there'll be a Gen Z factor in the future and there'll be a different way that we organize. But for those, as I said at the beginning of the show, that have done history, you remember the Young Kavirondo Association, which basically was the regions of Kisumu, Siaya, and Busia that were very, very active after the First World War. The Young Kavirondo Association, which was formed to be an anti colonial group. And this is where, by the way, if you read history, this is where public participation and the demand to access the governor at that time began. And so sometimes when you see communities arguing for entitlement in Kenya that they've done, sisi ni watoto ya Mau Mau, what about the rest that also have fought for freedom in this country? And how do you just dismiss and disqualify the Kavirondo as if they were not there? And so if you look at the numbers, Coast Region usually is 1 million votes, Ukambani is 1 million votes, the Kavirondo, which is, we just talked about, Busia, Kisumu, etc., the registered votes is 4.5 million votes. Then Mount Kenya comes in with its 4.7 millions, and then the Cushitic, region, which is also called Kamatusa and Somali, that is the Kalenjin, Masai, Turkana, and Samburu, coming at 2.6 million. What Kina Gachagua are trying to do is bunch the Kamba and the Kikuyu, which comes in at 5.7, leaving the other side at about 8.3 million votes. This formula that Gachagua is applying is going to just balkanize and draw away the Kikuyu community. He thinks he's helping them, but he's actually hurting them. So that is my caution. I also must insist that we uphold the Constitution. I've been very consistent on this. I'm not here to speak on behalf of the president. Everybody knows that I've opposed the things that I feel the government has done wrong and could do better. But there are big initiatives and big challenges ahead of us. For us, Ken, to continue to have all this noise and dysfunction and undermining within government. Let me remind Kenyans that one of the state officers that will present her evidence in front of the Senate is none other than the secretary to the cabinet, somebody also who has sworn oath. And so you have to ask yourself, is this a deputy president that is worthy of his office? Is this someone that can work with other people? It's not about me taking things personally. Yes, as the last speaker alluded to, I do know these people and have ways of cross-checking facts, but it's not going to serve any purpose for us to say that because I know this person personally, let me not speak the truth, because then it looks like I have a personal grudge. I don't really have a personal grudge. My interest is for a better country for our children and their children, for posterity. And so if we don't have the courage to speak truth to power, to exercise constitutional authority, to to shepherd constitutional processes, to usher in impunity, for a court to force a president to work with a deputy president who they have refused to see eye to eye. And the example of Ruto and President Uhuru doesn't suffice, by the way. We'll go into that in the next session. Ken, I don't think that is fair to us. I don't think that is fair to anybody. I don't think that is fair to the spirit of constitutionalism in this country. I don't think it's fair to the future. And the worst thing, actually, for me, that is so embarrassing is that countries in the region that look up to Kenya and also internationally, it is very wrong when we set ourselves to a lower standard while our colonialists and our allies and friends uphold highest standards. The governor of Illinois was impeached for trying to sell the seat of Senator Barack Obama, when he went for the presidency. He was impeached and removed, and in fact, even tried and charged by the FBI because they uphold the highest standards. Everybody knows that. We must change Kenya. We must transform Kenya. We must have these conversations, painful as they are. Thank you to everyone who has come in. Ken, thanks for having me. We tried not to be too technical. I think we've done a good job. I hope we've done a good job. And let's keep doing this. God bless everybody. God bless Kenya. This is a big week. Hopefully, we can learn from it and we can progress the country forward. Not progressing Gachagua as a person. No, no, no. Progressing Kenya forward. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Benji. As always, it's my pleasure hosting you. And one of the reasons why I love hosting you in this place, because you open our minds and you speak freely. And I get to know what you're thinking and what other Kenyans are thinking. That's why I keep calling you for this. And I'm hoping that you could be available also next week. We'll try and diversify, but I'm hoping you could be available now that we began this conversation. So thank you, everyone who has tuned in today. And we've had quite some amazing feedback from you. And the conversation will go off the X space, but I know on our timeline you will still be interacting with us. So thank you. We do this again next week on Sunday from 8 p.m. Look out for the other topic we'll choose. Also suggest topics that you want us to talk about. And have a good night. This is a big week for us. I work for KTN, for those of you who don't know, and I host a show every day on Wednesday, and we bring quite some perspectives, not only from our panelists, but also from the people we work with at KTN. So you can watch. And I don't come here as someone who works for KTN. I come here as Kenyan, and Kenya is our business. Have a good night. God bless. See you next week. We'll do the same thing. Same place. Asanteni sana. Shida zangu, tatua.